Father in heaven, we're grateful to be here this evening in this demonstration of representational democracy. We're grateful for those founding fathers who gave us these rights, and for has blessed us with a marvelous land, a marvelous country, a marvelous city. We pray that throughout the remainder of this meeting that we might, with wisdom, discuss the issues before us, and with guidance, thy guidance, come to good decisions, and that for the benefit and uplift of our entire city. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that. Move on to item 1, approval of the agenda. We need to take off 7A and table that for another day.
Probably not table it, just remove it.
Remove it.
from the
Excuse me,
agenda.
yes. Remove it for another day.
Mayor, with that being said, I'll make the motion that we approve the agenda with the removal of item 7A.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Ward, aye.
Clef eye.
Granger, aye.
Turek, aye.
All right, thank you. Declaration of abstentions and conflicts. Any to declare at this time?
No, but you may want to excuse counsel.
That's right. Excuse me. We need to excuse Councilman Elliston, who is out of town on business. Thank you. Item 4, consent agenda.
You want to go to do you have an announcement?
Good thing I have you right here. Announcement, presentation from the American Red Cross to the Washington City Community Center Aquatics Department for their excellence in safety training. Come on up. Ben, you're looking pretty dressy there.
You're looking way too cleaned up for being an aquatics guy.
Right, he looks good.
Better overdressed than underdressed any day. You're good now.
This is on video, right?
That it does happen. No.
Nice.
So Council Mayor, my name is Mike Stagg. I am the Red Cross representative for this state. I oversee all the certification programming that goes on, not only in this state, but in 2 other states, in Colorado and Wyoming as well. And so what I'm here to do is to present an award to Washington City, specifically the community center and the aquatics division, for some excellent safety work that they've done at the center. One of the things that they've been able to do is participate in what's called our Aquatic Examiner Service Program. What that program is we come in as the Red Cross as kind of like a third party to come in and do a comprehensive evaluation of the facility. We do an evaluation of the aquatic programming, of the lifeguards, as they watch their water, as they sit in their lifeguard stand, just to make sure that they stay vigilant to keep the community safe when people are coming in to use the facility. And we also look at back of the house things, kind of like lifeguard operations and placement of safety equipment around the facility, the updated equipment that they have there with their AEDs, the first aid supplies, make sure everything's up to date. We give comprehensive reports and evaluations to the staff of the community center and let them take it to improve their staff. This is a pretty prestigious award. There's about 30 of them in the state that we've given out, and only about 130 throughout the whole country.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool that Washington Community Center is one of those that we're able to recognize. This is especially cool for me. I have family who lives in this area. I come down and visit my grandparents all the time, bring my kids to this center. And it's great that I can bring my children here, and I know that they're safe because they have good, safe lifeguards on the stand. That's a testament to what these folks do at the community center. And a lot of this is possible through the relationship that you guys have with Utah Local Governments Trust. As your insurance provider, they actually pay everything for this program for you guys. And because of that relationship, we're able to then go in and offer these services free of charge to Washington City, which is really nice. It's a great program. They've continued throughout this last year. This award's actually from participation in 2017. We had an award presentation last March. These folks weren't able to make it. There was a huge snowstorm that day, so weren't able to make it to that meeting. But I just wanted to make sure that I was able to stand in front of you as council members and as the mayor to say thank you. Thank you for allowing these folks to do the job that they do. Thank you for the relationship that you've built with your insurance company to allow them to provide this service, and let us as the Red Cross come in to help and to really just give a lot of commendations to the staff that you have there. You have such great staff, and we're so excited to be able to partner closely with them in offering the trainings they do in lifeguarding and CPR and first aid, as well as with this examiner service program. So I'm just going to present this award to Ben here as the Assistant Leisure Services Director, and let him take that. And just to, again, say thank you to him, and thank you to you guys for everything that you do and for your support.
Turn around, we want a picture.
Oh, yeah.
Get in there. No hiding.
You want to say anything, Ben?
I just want to thank my staff for their work that they've done. You know, Shane, who's running away, has been with us a long time, and has been recently moved to full-time in the aquatics department, which has been fantastic. Shows the hard work she's done. And Mike Hammer, who is not able to be with us tonight, he heads up all of our training for our lifeguards. So he really deserves the bulk of the credit here. For our staff here in the aquatics. So I appreciate the trust for allowing us to be able to participate in this program and get better. So thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you all. Appreciate that. Okay, we'll move on to item 3, declaration of abstentions and conflicts. Anything to declare? And item 4, our consent agenda, to approve the minutes from the city council meetings of 12/11/18, 1/8/19, and 1/9/19. And our special, that's right. Our special events, it looks like there's 5 items. Consideration to approve a special event for Cotton Days 2019 to be held April 23rd to 28th and May 4th, along with the closing of the roads for the parade route. Applicant Washington City Leisure Services. Consideration to approve a special event for Pioneer Day event to be held at the Veterans Park July 24th. Again, along with closing the roads for the parade. Washington City Leisure Services. Third, consideration to approve a special event for Veterans Day to be held November 11th, along with the closing of the roads again. Same applicant. Consideration to approve a special event for Christmas in Dixie 2019 to be held December 2nd. Same applicant. Excuse me. And then item 5, consideration to approve a special event for the Southern Utah Half Marathon to be held on April 13th. Applicant Steve Hooper, REO Mount Running Events. And for a final plat, consideration to approve the final plat for Majestic Hills Phase 2, located approximately Noble Drive and 3650 South. Applicant Majestic Hills Development, Jason Christensen.
Was there anything on that final plat? Was there something that came through the planning commission? Or I'm trying to remember. Maybe this isn't the one then. Everything's clear on this. Yeah.
I'm good. I don't know about you guys. I'm good.
If there's no discussion, Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as detailed.
Thanks, sorry. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, thank you. Motion and a second.
Ward, aye.
Thank
Clough,
you.
aye.
Granger, aye.
Turek, aye.
All right, those are all approved.
Turn your cell phones off.
Item 5, Planning Commission appointment. Item 8, to consider to confirm the appointment of members of the Planning Commission. As you all know, that I like to see our Planning Commission members serve 2 terms. And the gentleman that was up with only served 1 term. So I'd like to reappoint Fan. Is he here? For another term.
Full name.
What? I don't know.
Commissioner Fan.
There you go.
Is that politically correct?
With that being said, Mayor, I certainly can agree with you with that. He's done a great job while he's been there and has a desire to continue to serve. And kind of like the first term, you kind of learn what you're doing. The second term, you really can get after it. So with that, I would, I guess you're waiting for item B to confirm. You ready to move to that?
Well, no, that's for the chair. So this is going to be for the commissioner.
Okay,
And-
well, I'll make a motion that we approve the confirmation of your appointee.
Thank you.
I'm not saying his name.
Anybody want to offer a second?
Second?
Thank you.
Ward, aye.
Clough, aye.
Granger, aye.
Turek, aye.
And I just want to, for the record, state that we had some really good applicants. And I encourage them to reapply if they so desire. Because we will have one up, I think in July, right, Denise, in July. So thank you, gentlemen and lady, for that, for your support. And we'll move on to item B, consideration to confirm and appoint the 2019 Planning Commission Chair. I asked Rex Papa if he would continue in that manner. Any questions or comments on that?
Has he consented?
He consented, yeah. Little arm twisting, but. I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to confirm your appointee as Mr. Rex Papa as your commission chair for the Planning Commission.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Turek, aye.
Granger, aye.
Clough, aye.
Ward, aye.
Thank you. Item 6, ordinances. Consideration to approve an ordinance granting the zone change request Z-18-16 to request from RA1 residential agriculture to 1 acre minimum lots to R112 residential single family 12,000 square foot lots minimum located approximately Washington Fields Road, in Harmon Lane.
Thank you, Mayor. The 2-week holdover is now complete for this item, which is ready for council action at this time. I don't know if you had any questions in your 2-week time period. I'll be glad to answer those if you did. Just to remind you that the Planning Commission recommended approval unanimously for item Z-18-16 for this request from the RA1 to the R112.
The only thought I had is on that little strip that comes along the back of the elementary school that we were kind of using as a cleanup. I think that's the canal.
Yes.
With the desire of futuristically that becoming a trail, do we impact that at all by including it in this?
No.
Okay.
No, the zoning wouldn't matter on it.
Just wanted to make sure that we don't negatively impact our opportunities futuristically.
I can't think of a reason why.
Cleaning up.
Yeah, I can't think of a reason why it would impact it in any way, because it is still a canal easement, no matter what the zoning goes on.
Well, we hope someday it's a beautiful trail.
Yes.
That was my concern.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Is it, is it worth designating on the approval that that intent is for a trail back there, so we don't lose sight of that.
I think it'll hurt anything to have it on record.
So I move approval with the condition that the trail be part of this development along the back parcel. That descriptive enough? Along the back strip by the elementary
Just
school?
say over the canal easement area.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be fine.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Have a motion and a second.
Terry Guy.
Granger, aye.
Clough, aye.
Ward, aye.
Thank you. That's approved. Item B, consideration to approve an ordinance granting the zone change request Z-18-17 to request to amend the Brio PCD development by amending the design guidelines density to be moved around but not to exceed the 856 units, removing the definition of side yard retaining wall and who is responsible to install, updating all wall locations along collector roads, and updating the land use table. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mayor. We did get in all the maps for the council this time, so hopefully you had a chance. I had one exhibit had the old or the current maps, not the old because they're not old yet. The current maps, and then the proposed new ones is in a separate file. And then we had the just the language given in that third exhibit of the numerous pages, 50 plus, that showed all the strikeouts and the new verbiage. So hopefully you had everything. Again, the maps are being mostly updated to eliminate what we always refer to as a Jensen parcel that has now been sold and being developed by another developer. So with that said, the 2-week holdover is now complete for this item as well. It's ready for city council action. Again, to remind you, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of Z-18-17 for this requested of the amended Brio PCD project plan onto you, the city council. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have had. Hopefully you've been able to
In the
look over the exhibits.
CCNRs, I think there were some questions raised about for sale signs.
Correct. And what they wanted to do, just to make it cleaner, they went back and looked at what Coral Canyon puts in, which a lot of us use. They would like to bring that in. If you want, I'll show you what they are proposing. We'll put it on Elmo, if we could, Tara. This should clean up everything at home. Folks might have had.
I'm going to go back and double check my notes.
Basically, they're going to strike out what was there about just being in the windows. This is what they'd like to propose for the council to adopt, and this should clean up a lot of those concerns. So in the yellow, red lettering, yellow highlight, for sale properties may have one sign for each single family residential unit located on the same lot as the residence and placed in the front yard. No sign may carry more than 2 riders and 1 information case. For lease or rent properties, may have 1 sign for each family residential unit located in the residence front window. The limit on the sign size is 3 square feet. The community manager has the right to remove any signage that violates the rules and regulations of the design guidelines and or the CCNRs. So in other words, this allows them to have the standard, realtor sign. They just can't have multiple ones. We probably wouldn't let that happen either anywhere in town. So,
Yeah,
so hopefully this.
Yeah, no, that looks good. I sense they were, the ones who spoke were looking for equity between Brio's for sale signs and theirs. should they
Right.
Choose to do that.
And
So
it was
this
kind of
seems
hard to
take
say
care
that,
of it.
you folks selling your house, put a sign in the window, but we'll put one out in the ground. So I'm glad that they went this direction
Yeah.
and brought
Drew,
this.
what's the reasoning behind not allowing your lease or rent signage to be similar? That has to go into the window, because a lot of them, you go around, you see the same real estate signs, they just say for rent on another lease.
I think because if you have a home that's constantly under rent, it'll just, it may end up being I'm losing the word, just a bad, always seeing a for rent sign out there all the time on a particular home. Could end up being a little bit of blight, constantly, especially if people are moving in and out a lot on it. I can see, again, this is the same standards that are in Coral Canyon, that anything for rent is in a window, but for sale can be out on the yard.
That makes sense.
So I kind of like it with the rent because
Better than it was.
there are places I can take you to 3 or 4 in town that seem to always have a for rent sign out in front of the home because people are just coming and going all the time, and it's be a little eyesore. That's the term I was looking for, an eyesore. I kept thinking sore eye, and I thought, what does that have to do with it?
It's kind of a catch-22 there, though. I mean, it's always for rent, but you can't advertise it as well as maybe you want, so it's always for rent. I don't know. My trouble with it is that they're giving them the ability to remove signs, but they're requiring it to be in the window. I'm hoping that doesn't extend to removing things from the window.
I think the removal would be the ones out in the lawn, probably.
I would assume so, but that's not what it says.
Yeah.
And there was a number of suggestions that the council gave. I don't want to move off this particular topic if somebody's not ready, but there was a number of suggestions that council gave. Is this the only alteration from the last presentation that we had?
That, from what I'm aware of, yes. I'm trying to remember what your.
Well, why don't we discuss the wall
Exactly. That's what I was
situation
thinking.
where
Mhm.
the building, they stated that they were starting to build those walls anyway. So I'm wondering why we wouldn't just say that the developer will build the walls.
Correct. I don't see it.
Oh, I see what you're. Yeah.
There was the worry that some of those people might be requested to build a wall after they'd already come under some CCNRs that didn't tell them they had to do that.
And they're requesting
If
for
we
that.
get clarity on that.
So
Right.
something
If they're going to be required, then
Yeah,
you everybody
between
just
you and
felt.
your neighbor to work out getting paid all of a sudden because you put the wall in. They
You
move in, you walk knock on the door. It's like, hey, I'm your new neighbor. By the way, you owe me this because you just moved in next to me. And that's, like I say,
You're
they
just having them
mentioned that-
built by the developer.
Yeah, in the public hearing, the developer stated that they were building those walls, starting to do that anyway. So if they're doing it, why do we need the verbiage? I mean, the verbiage should just say the developer will
Be responsible
be
for.
responsible for walls.
And hearing that from the citizens there, they're like, well, we just want to have the walls done when we move into
Well,
it.
that's in most cases I've ever been involved with. That's part of the development is those walls go in as the developer develops. Homes are built, and the wall goes up as part of the home.
Well, especially if they're going to be required.
Correct.
Well, in a PCD, it's, but it's not, it's very common out there that walls are built by the property after on a standard subdivision.
Oh, it's standard,
a
but
lot
this
of
is
them.
not a standard subdivision.
That's why I say, but I just wanted to clarify that this is a PCD, but, generally out there, they are, developers aren't putting in the walls, but in
No,
the
that's-
PCDs, yeah.
Well, I guess it's a difference between, it's optional if I want a wall or if I have to have a
Correct.
wall.
Yeah, so we can invite the applicant up. I'm not going to speak for that one for him, so.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing really to speak about. In my opinion, we changed the verbiage. I mean, I heard the applicants say that this is what they're doing anyway, so I guess I've heard from the applicant, tell me what he's doing. Let's just change the verbiage in there to say they'll put the walls in.
That would be this particular party wall C
Correct.
on page 50.
I don't see that.
The owner of a lot shall be responsible for constructing all party walls. That's the rear and side wall area to lot
Yeah.
adjacent property. So it's still in there.
This is not the one that addresses that you and your neighbor, you can go collect from your neighbor. That must be in another portion of it. Scroll on down with your, further down, Drew. Is that all there is on party walls? let's see, right, the property line shall be shared between two, there it is, right there. The party wall shall, the upfront cost of the party wall constructed shall be entitled to reimbursement, but you go collect it yourself. See, that to me ought to
It's
just
all
be
still
stricken
there.
out.
Yeah, it's all still there. And, also maybe some language that this is, the old rules are grandfathered. This is not.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, currently,
Currently, what it reads is this: prior to occupancy of a single-family residence constructed on a lot, the builder shall construct and pay for a party wall along the rear boundary of each home prior to occupancy. Owner of the home will be responsible to build the party wall on the sides of the home and return walls back to the home. So that's how it reads
And
right
they have-
now,
And they have
simply.
90 days to do that. So these are compulsory.
Well, here it didn't give them any time. This is just, I'm just reading you what is in the current, is that they had to build on the back property, the rear property line, the builder had to build the wall, and then the sides would be taken care of by the property owners. There was no time limit on, at least as I'm
And
reading
this
in
is the
here.
proposed
So,
that there is, there's a
Yeah.
90-day.
so this is the new proposal that you're seeing.
Well, and this also says that when the neighbor moves in, they've got 90 days to pay off their share of the lot too. So there are two places where it mentions 90-day.
I think that's, for as a part of the PCD, if I'm the overall, director of that, I'd want to put a time limit, because then there's a clock ticking on if there is a standard. Because if you don't have it, you can't
Well,
come and
that's
say,
what I'm
well, you
saying.
need to
That's-
build it. And it says, well,
That's
tell
what
me
I'm saying, as a
where,
developer, they ought to put that in, and if it goes into the
Yep.
cost of the home, it goes into the cost of the home. Then you don't have this
You wanna-
90-day argument happen, you don't have suddenly neighbors.
Seeking
starting to
relief
fight
through the
with each other.
courts to fix things,
Yeah,
and that just
and it
seems
just-
not
Yeah,
the
we're
right
just
way.
Creating
We're setting up a storm that we don't need to have.
especially when they told us that they were doing that anyway, so.
Well, you can move into a property, you assume that it's ready to occupy, and now you find out that you've got 90 days to spend a whole bunch more money again.
Off of a amount that somebody has already spent that they don't know what it is, neither does the contractor know. It seems so.
then there's always a question, does somebody feel like, hey, is this guy making me pay more than 50%?
Correct. I mean,
Even if he has paperwork, that could be, you want to stay out of that stuff as
I
much
would
as
think.
possible. So,
That's why that whole thing to me needs to be removed.
So I'm wondering if we want to table this and give them a chance to rework it.
or if they have a simple solution, I'd ask them to say it tonight.
Sure,
yeah.
They just say, you know what, we're gonna pay for them, let's just strike all this, that is just say, party walls will be
Glad to
installed.
hear.
No,
From the rear.
Glad to hear.
Maybe before we open that up, because I have another concern, and that is with your densities being able to be shifted around. I'm not in agreement with that.
I agree.
For the mere fact, you have a lot of those people that buy into those because the way it is today, that all of a sudden tomorrow we shift it and say, well, yeah, originally that was going to be this, but today we shifted it over there, and there's really no more units in the whole thing, but you got a whole lot more neighbors today. And so I don't agree with that portion of it as well, that they're able to shift that without going through the processes that we've done in the past. I would hope there's not many more of those to come. I would hope that we've kind of fleshed that out to this point and decided what's going to land where.
It's a lot sale, though,
Yeah.
the chances of it
Well,
going, yeah. keeps going.
So anyway,
So that's being noted on.
You're going to get the land use summary on 3.1.
This goes, okay, this- Yeah, so here's what it is that this would be the note that you wouldn't want to agree with. Right? Sorry, it's a little grainy. This is part of the request on the amendment.
correct. Correct. That's why, in my opinion,
And I
that
can
needs
see,
to be.
I totally see, Councilman Curtis motion that, because we
you know right now, just gonna use this right here, this pink area, we know that's where the townhomes are right now. But they used to be here, then they got moved completely to the south end, now they're back. And, you know, so they went from one end to the other and then back, and now if you bought right next to that, knowing that the townhomes are going there,
Correct.
and then if they could move them at their free
At their
will.
whim. That's right. There is no public process for the people to have input on that.
Right.
Good point.
And how does that affect the land use summary? That's the part I'm looking at here, is we're changing acreages and units around there. Land use summary is in here at 3.1, which is page 28 of this document, and that's the document page, not the PDF page.
20,
So you're looking at the pages on the document itself. Yeah. So
now which part are you reading? I just want to bring it up on the screen for folks. Is there?
yeah, that top section there, we're shifting some of those acreages around, those units around.
Yeah, right now, these ones are what's on that map that you see.
Yeah.
That's being proposed. These are the ones that are just cleaning up because we've changed the maps before and this page didn't get caught up on some of those. So that's,
Okay.
again, this is part of that cleanup process.
So
This
that
is-
doesn't have any relationship to what
No, this is
Councilman Turek.
No, because what's happening is that these are going to be as they are today or tomorrow if this passes, come, 12:01 tonight. But what that page says, going back, is that even though that you see all those numbers that we just looked at on page 28, this gives them a freedom to say, you know what, we have a desire to push the densities up over here. Even though we're going to take them down somewhere, they have to drop them
Correct.
somewhere, but they could be right next to where folks, they could take a
Well,
pink
people-
color and put it, somewhere that it's not represented right now. And
Yeah, but
The way this is kind of meant to be is these stay in the places, but let's say, like take phase one. In the beginning, the homeowner, the REIT applicant, the owner came in and they increased the size of the lots in phase one. And that decreased the number of lots in that. So we had to pick them up and that's when that enclave came back in. We're not going to move anything, but what happens if our enclave lots has, let's write a number, it's not the number, 200 lots, and we're supposed to have 325. So maybe now we can redesign that pink section to have 225 rather than 220.
No, I understand what you're asking for, what your concern or your desire is. But my concern is you have neighbors who have bought into those neighborhoods already based off of a plat that's there.
And we don't plan on moving any.
No, but all of a
anything
sudden you're
around.
talking about increasing densities. That all of a sudden, instead of having 200 neighbors, you give me 300 neighbors for the numbers that you used. And it's like, just a minute here. And so,
Single-family homes, but
there's still single family homes, but you've stuffed me in the middle of this thing. And so, without having a public process, like as we do and have, for those people that come in and voice their concerns, for the council to weigh the concerns of the council and decide, hey, it's legitimate, hey, it doesn't impact you negatively too bad, or whatever it may be, to give free reign to the developer to do that willy-nilly, I'm not comfortable with.
Well,
And if
if you decide, you want bigger lots and bigger homes where you've gotten a certain density, that's certainly your choice. But that doesn't necessitate a requirement for us that we allow you to pick up that density when you've made the choice
Correct.
not to put those numbers in there.
And that's where this maximum of 856 comes in, because we can never get more than that. Kind of some of this is also tied to a development agreement, because in our development agreement, it says we can move 10% within that zoning, and that zoning designation. What's driving this 100% is in the senior apartments, we
You're
originally
doubling it.
done for 210 homes.
Yeah, you're doubling it.
We came down, the original design came down and it was 195. And so we came in, we amended PCD to 195. That design didn't work. It wasn't financially feasible. So now we want to move back up to 205. We're still below the original 210, but every time we're doing some of this, we have to come in for a PCD amendment. And if we go back to the first time, I think it was Councilman Clough, he looked at this big old long list of changes. He goes like, is this right? I mean, can't you guys get your crap together? So that's what I'm kind of trying to avoid, is these little smaller changes that maybe or maybe,
Well, there,
but I get your point. I'm not
yeah,
trying to.
there might be a way you can make the smaller changes without quite as global a coverage as you're requesting. for
And if we
improvement.
want to put like the development agreement says within 10%, I mean, that's, I can't imagine with what we've got designed now. We got,
You remember some of the public hearings you said, and when you were looking at moving those down, and those people said, hey, just a minute, we had this, now you're throwing these things, and we're going to block our view, and you've heard the
Oh, yeah.
discussion that took place.
but yeah,
And so if we don't have a public process that we can go through that with, then all of a sudden, now we've left it to you to be able to shift and to kind of manipulate what you want to do. Those poor residents up there at the whim of a developer, and I don't like that. I mean, that's part of the representation that we have a responsibility for.
That's the intent, is it's just,
I understand your intent, but sometimes the intent
Doesn't
and the
match
language that's here
language.
that can get handed back to you and said, well, the intent was this, but guess what? You just got handed that.
but yeah, if we want to put 5%, 10%, put a number on it.
I don't mind listening to you every time you want to come back. That's part of
If
what
you
this.
don't mind seeing my bright
No,
smiling
we love to
face.
have you come here and stay engaged. That's part of our job here, is to get to talk to you about those things. And so I don't have a problem with that personally.
Trying to hear the rationale of why you would like this liberty is maintained with the process of talking to the council. So it just has a little bit more public interaction. I agree with Councilman Turek. I don't see a reason to grant any type of an exception that's already granted within the process that you have in place in front of you.
The only thing I would ask, I'd have no problem striking this out. The only thing I would ask is then I need to move, well, it says 205 right now. So if that's what the council approved, then I'd have no problem taking that out.
Be the senior living,
The number of units was 190.
It's at 195 currently, and then we would like to get up to 205. Yeah, I have no problem. That was the whole reason to do it,
All right,
because I believe, and I think,
it's just.
Jeff would have to read that development agreement, but I thought there was a 10% rule built into that, and I was just,
And just to make sure we're clear on that, the intent of that one was there, and when it was approved by the council was that if the community development director and the developer felt like that was within that range and not an adjustment, that would be fine. To the extent that that doesn't even get to that point, then that provision doesn't even prevail. And that, to be honest with you, that always kind of depended on a good working relationship, which is, again, what we're always working on, especially on these big projects, and comfortability and with the community development director in terms of his representation of the council. So we still got to come to one of those where it fits well, and I think we're at that comfortability level, and it's rooted at that comfortability level also. So
of course.
it's not just a 10% per se, that's out, but it still has to be the fundamental basis. That's even an understanding between the representatives of each party. So I don't want to get too offline there about that, but there's always this understanding in big developments, good working relationship with each other, including the fact that council's comfortable with that, that's working. And I hear, at least right now, not enough comfortability that we just boom it off anyway. So.
And I don't have a problem, like I said, we don't. But that was the purpose of it, is just to stop these little, because, we've got them pretty much set now and running out, but they may change, like I said, the patio, they may change up and down, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 here and there, but we're very limited on the space we have left because we ate out a big portion of it in phase 1. And there's just, by the time you look through the PCD, how much park area we have to give, open space, we're getting cornered in a box. But like I said, if you don't mind seeing my bright, shiny face, and I have no problems putting in the language for us putting the walls in as a developer. Only thing is written like that is because technically, this is what our attorney said, the owner is paying for it because it's inside of their purchase agreement. That's why he wrote that language. So that's why he wrote it like that. And if
We're talking about the walls now?
the walls,
And who's building the walls? And who's paying for them?
He's saying he would do it.
the builder, there's two entities, you got the developer and you got the builder. The builder is building the walls as part of the purchase price from the owner. And so that's why that language was in there, was because he felt like since the owner is paying for it, that they needed to be represented in it. But again, I don't care.
You can understand our concern. with-
100%.
Like I
That's
said,
why I
can
said I don't
understand
care.
if I were to move into a house, I get a house built and I move into it, and the next thing I know, I've got a neighbor knocking on my door that says, you got 90 days to pay me for that wall, and throws me an arbitrary number, I'm saying, just a minute here.
Yeah.
I'm paying you for that wall, and all of a sudden, we've got neighbors fighting against neighbors for really no reason. We should-
Oh, I agree
we
100%.
should-
But
we
that's,
should have that.
that's why the attorney recommended this language, was because the owner is the person who's paying for the home as part of his purchase price. But if we can
Well,
rework that,
It's probably not,
and if,
but you're receiving the purchase price.
correct, the builder is,
So
correct,
the builder should be the one building the wall.
yes,
Okay,
at the owner's expense,
well, that's clear.
Yes.
But at the sales
correct.
event, not later, not within 90
Yeah,
days.
it's, they don't
just
take it
that-
over and they don't get the house till the
No,
wall built.
once they bought the house, they bought the wall.
Yes.
Okay.
And also, and we
Similar to
can-
what we do in a regular neighborhood is what you're saying, then. So the new neighbor that moves in has no responsibility for the wall. It's already been paid for by the first guy.
first and second.
As much as you'd like to shift costs to a neighboring party,
Well, not the second.
what's being set up is a fight. And that's the
Eventually
part
the
where I
second.
don't agree.
Because it's
would
part of
eventually
his
the second
purchase
one be?
price. If you have two neighbors, this house sells first, he's getting his wall in, then this guy will have to
So
pay
if
for
you've
it.
got so you've got the same builder doing, have you got multiple builders?
No, we're the only builder.
Okay. Is that ever going to change?
No.
Okay. Is that written in the verbiage? What happens tomorrow if suddenly you say you're tired of being a builder? And what is the process for separating that out? Is that just an arbitrary decision?
It's pretty painful and
My only concern is if we put in builder and all of a sudden you're not the builder anymore, we've got the same problem over again. Because you got multiple, unless there's specified as only one single builder in there, and then of course you
Well,
don't.
we're not saying developer, we're saying at this point, builder.
because that's the technically person who will be building.
Yeah.
At
So
the
we have to
owner's
put a clause in
expense.
there, if it exceeds more than one builder on this particular PCD.
I don't know how you do it. Yeah,
Dude,
it's a
would you
tricky-
have,
Well,
how many
we
times
don't-
you split
We don't
this?
tie the PCD to a builder, so it would seem the rules would transfer to whomever was,
They'd have to live by the PCD.
Yeah.
If we ever sold it.
Yeah.
And and if I can work with Drew on, I have no problem grandfathering everybody previous to, and we can put a line in here that says, anybody bought before this date, they're subject to the previous version. I have no problem
Grandfathering those in.
because it says that they have 90 days to build a wall. So it's just kind of, I have no problem. We're not doing anything that's crazy.
okay?
We had
What
some
else?
questions
At it?
Yeah, go
previously about the view walls. I think they're listed in there as view fences. And I must confess, I was relying on Councilman Belliston to be here for some of those. So I'm going back over my notes. Just want to make sure oh no, I lost it. View fencing picks up on page 48, I believe. Oh, he beat me to it. Did we get all of that hammered out and decided on?
Trying to remember our discussion on this.
Reed, can you remind me in what applications you're going to use the you're putting the wrought iron on top, and other applications, it's just a solid wall.
The one on top is a complete view fence.
Yeah.
And right now, that one we're looking at only along the golf course area.
Okay.
And so so we get a free golf course view. Thank you very much. The perimeter half view is two scenarios. If you border up against HOA space or open space and you want to be able to view it, or if per se you've got a roadway, you're pulling up to a road, and there's more than 4 foot elevation change from the road to this top of your lot, then we can put this half view, because then you can see up and over. And we pretty much leave it not up to the owner, but we don't usually put it in until it's sold, so we can ask them what they would like. And if they want a solid wall in, we'll put a solid wall in. But if they want that view left in there, then we'll put the view in. Now, realize, I know this is not an issue, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. This wall is twice as amount as a solid one, the cost. And so we like to put them in because they're beautiful and they maintain some of those nice views of Pine Valley and some around, but it costs more money to do it. And we do it all the time. We're doing it right now.
Well, and you want consistency with what's
Right.
going in on those walls too.
Right.
Right. You ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
Well, there was,
Wait.
Yeah, one other concern that I had when that was talking on the walls, that's on page 58, where we're talking about building excess of 8 feet. If an engineer will sign off on it. My only concern with that is who inherits the liability when it's signed off on? And in talking with one of our public works folks the other day about concerns with this, he said, well, I've got a situation right now where an engineer is trying to sign off on a 22-foot wall, retaining wall. And that's the same thing. And so you get some of those that are saying, okay, I'm willing to pay the price. I'll design it type thing. And so that's the only concern that I have is leaving it at the discretion of an engineer, because most of the time, who inherits the liability of it, or if it fails?
The engineer.
Yeah, but whoever goes back and finds that engineer, I mean, certainly somebody eventually would find them if it was bad enough. But I guess my biggest concern is, how do we keep those things within reason that say, okay, anything going over 8 foot, I mean, to me, 8 foot wall, especially in a retaining walls, pretty good sized.
So where this is stemming from is basically all this came out of 5B. If you've been out there recently, you drive out there and you can see these big blocks being put up. Big blocks are not in the
5B,
PCD.
that's the one right behind the fire station,
Uh-huh.
right? That you're excavating, right?
Yes. Big blocks are not in the PCD, not in the design guidelines. But Dwayne Rogers at AGC came out with the soil conditions, with what was previously built there. He said, this is the only wall that I will stand. This wall is twice the cost of block. It's 3 times the cost of rock. I would rather do anything else. But he will only stamp a big block wall, and because of the soil conditions. There's 2 other walls on this site that were originally designed as 2-tiered walls. And he came in and with the conditions of the soil, with the conditions of everything around, he moved it to a single tiered wall of 10 feet rather than have 2 5-foot.
and this is the engineer?
This is the engineer. Because on a 2-tiered wall, let's say you had 5 feet, you put 1 row of geogrid the height of the wall. So you have 1 row of 5-foot geogrid. Now I've got every 2 feet, so I got 4 rows of 10-foot geogrid. And it's
All right,
a more
help
stable
me out
wall.
with the geogrid. What does that do on your retaining wall?
It holds it in
Yeah,
place.
ties the
Oh, just
soils-
the
ties the soils
the
together.
material behind it. Okay.
And also, he came in on the same development that had a single tiered wall. He put in 2 tiered walls because of some of the similar concerns. And so that's kind of where this language is coming from. Is it's not specifically called out in here, and I, again, just trying to plug a hole.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to hear, because I guess I drive along I call it still Middleton Drive, but it's Red Hills Parkway where they're widening the road now. and they were using the big block there, and they've gone up 2 blocks and tiered it off and then set back. And so you've got another engineer that's using big block, but he's going staggered, which is interesting when you've got one saying here with this. And actually, I would think that their soils over there probably, because they seem to, I mean, just driving by looks more clay, yours looks a little more sandy. I don't know, just from road appearances.
Yeah.
And to me, clay's going to hold its, I'd be a lot safer, at least in my opinion, with a taller wall all in one and clay than I would sand. So it's interesting, just like I say, 2 different engineers' way of thinking things. And I'm not one to guess an engineer, and I
That's where this
I guess I
comes.
wanted to throw it out for council to think about and say, hey, do we just say, hey, as long as an engineer certifies it, not our problem? Or do we want to say, look,
We stick to what we do.
yeah, we want to go to a,
And that's where this comes to is if an engineer can't certify it, then who's going to take responsibility? Am I going to put up the wall that says in the PCD, and when it fails,
yeah, then you're setting up.
Yeah,
Oh, I can see
or
what
are
you're
we
saying.
going to certify it? Probably not.
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
that's, like I
so,
say, I just,
but yeah, that's where.
unless we put in and say, hey, 10-foot talls, you terrace them after 10 foot. You know.
But
It's
just
a
so
little more
everybody
safe or something
knows,
like
we
that.
would rather terrace them because we've got everywhere that we don't have them terrace walls. They look like a prison. Those are the hardest lots that we have to sell. But if we terrace them and then they can put in a landscape strip, we can sell those lots for more money and quicker. And so all this is, and that's what really drives everything is sales. And so we've got to abide by the engineer where he says we have to abide by him.
I only think the last part that was brought up when we were discussing this was in the access, right when you come in Rio Drive, there we were talking about creating access for another road or for commercial. I don't see that articulated.
Yeah, that was some discussion that Drew had, and so they need to work on cleaning that up and showing that.
That's something that I have from my notes that's not cleaned up on this. I'm not on the page. I'm looking at this and I'm looking back at.
If you look at the existing one versus the new, Drew, if you recall,
Because really concerned about the curve in the entrance into that property. Is that, I remember Belston's discussion on this.
What council talked about was 5B. This is the 5B lot down here in the yellow. And you wanted a little access off of this cul-de-sac
Those are two
into the
part.
commercial.
It was either that, but also just has the access is going up that main drive into the commercial. The concern was creating a safe entrance into that commercial. Also, it just felt like on just the curvature of the road itself made it difficult to find a good place for it to access that property. I believe those were the 2 parts. Your part, but also the access from the main road.
Oops. Oh, button.
We did discuss coming through the back part. That is correct, but we also discussed clarifying the entrance into that commercial property to be sold.
So this is where we would, and I guess that just comes, the question is a 20-foot access, back in there going into a residential neighborhood. Is that going to be a benefit or a deterrent or a problem? And you could, probably get 2 debate teams in here and probably give a real good case on both of them, because if I'm living on that street, they're going to be mad that everybody's going to be coming through their area to take the back way into the commercial. But it's also a nice secondary access that people can use. So that one comes with a ripple effect is, I guess, the best way that it's going to be pro'd and conned.
I prefer not to be conned.
Yeah.
So
But I can tell you right now, just with history of my years and experience, that, yeah, I could see where that'd be a neat little thing, and it sure be a real big pain and be problematic.
So you feel like
as well.
You'll be able to address the entrance into that piece with road as it is?
I think on that piece off of the main Brio Parkway, I think there's places that we can make sure, site-wise, it may have to be right on the closest, the most
furthest
biggest bend. It's going to be at the furthest end, or it's going to be right in the middle. depending on
Yeah,
getting
it'd be
out there and
interesting because
actually-
we have with our access management, you've got your other main road coming up here.
Yeah, sorry, this is tilted. I can't, it just got
Yeah,
downloaded
it's
that
a
way,
little bit of
but
a challenge to see exactly and to know what you're.
I can bring in another one. I mean, we'll just, this way you can kind of,
Oh, okay, so so we'd be fine.
yeah, so it's either going to be way up on the top end, and it could be a pretty good size opening. I mean, depending on how this develops out, on the acreage, I'm trying to think how many acres are there. It's 4.2 acres. How that develops out and the parking in there, or it could be right in the middle on the bend there. There might be enough sight distance both ways to pick that up. And again, this may not be exactly the engineer's design on this diagram. It's going to be really close.
I probably would detour to trying to keep that commercial traffic out of those residences.
I just remember it being a point of discussion.
Yeah, exactly. Good catch, because we did bring that up, and I remember that saying, well, we'll need to address that.
I guess I would be fine without it going into residential, but I'm wondering, do we need to be more articulate what happens to that property at this stage? Or do we just let it continue to go in the PCD and address it when it comes? I know it just got brought up. Maybe we don't need to address it at this time.
I mean, regarding the access.
Yeah, regarding the access into that particular property. I don't know what's talked
I
as
think
a,
if you're gonna
Well,
require
yeah.
it to come through the cul-de-sac to residential, I would think you would want it somehow articulated. If not, I think the default would be commercial with access, typically just off of that.
To the main road.
And the worst,
So we're
and the
basically-
worst case scenario you're going to end up with, worst case scenario would be a median at that driveway, wherever they want to put it, would be
one road access.
right in,
one lane.
right, it'd be right in, right out.
Okay.
Would be the worst case
Logically, if
scenario.
I think you were gonna come out of a cul-de-sac, you'd take your upper cul-de-sac. That's gonna keep you through less of your residential. You'd be straight shooting it out and just have a few residences impacted rather than the whole.
I'm fine with either, honestly. And so
Yeah, my preference would be that we stay away
On the
from the
road.
residential side of it. Keep that commercial traffic in the commercial area.
Then
I know.
we've got the park build out here. You're specifying that the number and the locations and the potential parks are approximate. But the
Yeah, they
final-
sent in today, and I'll just let you peek. I mean,
I just want you to make note of the bubbles. So I just came in at noon today, so. I don't really want to put it in your packet. Because it's just, all they're doing is clarifying that these. So just make note of the red bubble areas.
So is that different than what is in the packet?
no, there wasn't, that was one of the maps that was not in the packet that they brought and got into us, so. Again, the acreage is there. They're just saying it may, this one may end up being a third of an acre and this one a half acre. And it all depends on how the subdivisions end up, laying out with their design, especially up on the certain areas.
Does this meet our concern that we had much earlier in the hearings, that the actual number of
Yeah,
green
it does, because they were
space
worried that they were being
reduced?
taken away,
Yeah,
that there
right.
was represented, these were going to be here. And all they're saying is they are tied to X amount of acres of those particular things. And they're going to meet those.
Right.
It just depends on where they
But
end
they'll be
up
somewhere
I
because
in
of
get that, but taken away can
design.
be determined, can be defined.
moved. It's,
Well, if you're right next to it and you thought you purchased right next to it and you move it down the street or reduce that size and add it to someplace else, taken away can still apply, yeah.
well, the whole thing, and I can see that if you're looking at this map, that would be, but when you go look at your lot, you're going to go look at your lot. You're not going to look at this and just walk, sign the papers and walk away. I mean, all of us are going to go walk up and know where my lot is it'll show you just by standing there if that's not there or not.
So, which is
So-
fine. I'm just wondering, when does the park locations get locked in? Because
Platting.
according to this, say again,
At platting.
at platting.
Yeah, they'll show them on the preliminary plats, and the final plats will have those as HOA tracks or HOA common. You know, they'll be labeled as such as that, and then they'll be landscaped open areas.
Drew, we've got a couple here you got one up in the top and here that are not bubbled.
That means
means they
that's
could-
what I'm assuming. So I hope,
They could
I hope
be taken
Scott-
away?
no, they're not. The other ones with the bubbles are the ones.
Oh, that are pliable. These that are up there, they're set in stone.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
You're saying.
Scott Duffin with Horrocks Engineers. So all we were trying to do was just to identify what changed from the previous exhibit.
Oh,
And so we're just highlighting or clouding
okay.
that we've added those parks onto this map. So the ones that were up on top before were there originally. And that was the concern, I think, at one of our last
Okay.
meetings, was that parks were moving around. And so what we wanted to do was just to show some potential locations on here so people could get that in their mind that, hey, we're going to meet the 20.4 acre, or I'm sorry, yeah, overall, meet the park's requirements, but here's some locations where they could go. So it's kind of a menu.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
I'm glad that you pointed out, so these ones here, those are there.
Correct.
These are the ones that they have changed or they have just.
Added.
This is some change from the original, part of the cleanup process.
Yeah.
Does that help you? That's-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that-
Around a neighborhood park, 1.4 acres.
Yeah.
And those are the ones, at least I would think, one would think, I'm gonna have a park by me versus native scape as being, gee, I don't have natives.
And in this document, throughout the whole document, you've got a few things going on. One is just corrections to bring it up to what you had. And those are all in your red. I'm just trying to make sure I've got that clear in there. Everything that is an addition is in red and yellow.
Well,
that
so,
consistent through
so
the
we
document?
showed something to the planning commission, 4 weeks ago or so.
Yeah.
And so that was, everything that changed was in red. And then from the planning commission, we actually had some comments from the planning commission.
So those are the ones that are in. they're
Those are the ones that
highlighted
we put in yellow.
Yeah.
So that way you could track, what did the planning commission see?
Okay.
And then what did we change since then? And then just today, we just added 3 things. One was that section on the sale sign. And then number 2 is a comment was made at the last city council that we needed to correct these exhibits, the open space and the monument exhibits, to show the street layout to be similar to what's on the site plan.
Yeah, 'cause the problem was this area here was was shown from a previous map. And so I told them they need to get this to this cul-de-sac in here.
Yeah.
Some of them are missing this one. And so we just wanted to make sure they were all the same face.
Right. So when you look at all the exhibits, they all look the same in terms of the street layout. So to your question specifically, Councilman, yeah, it's just cleaning it up to account for all the PCD amendments that have occurred, and some of the sheets have gotten updated, some haven't. We just wanted to bring it all in harmony. And then there were some design guideline changes that we spent a lot of time on, and just bringing those up to speed as well. So it's a consistent document throughout.
Well, I appreciate that. I guess I'm kind of thinking forward to other PCD amendments and changes. We're going to have these, we're encouraging them. But some of them do get, I'm doubting myself and some of the stuff I've read to make sure that you understood that this was a change, this was an update, this was just to correct the language to fit the map. I'd like to see a cleaner process for bringing that in, but I think that's probably incumbent upon us to establish that, I guess.
Yeah, because sometimes when you change a map, you don't realize that
Yeah.
at the time that it ended up needed to change verbiage.
Yeah,
You didn't know it until
There's a lot.
you got to that point, and then
Problem
all
is
of a
when you get to a point where you're trying to check it all off and make sure it all fits in and put a decent vote in on it, a lot of weeds to go through.
Drew, I've got another question for Reed, if you wouldn't mind. On page 26, talking about your final design submittal and review process, that you're changing that to a 60-day window from 30 days.
That's consistent with our development agreement.
Okay.
It says it right in it.
So that's the reason for the change is you're just making it clear from one piece to the other piece, so now it's
Yeah.
consistent all the way.
And I couldn't change that, so I can
I
change
just
it.
wondered, okay, wondered what was driving the change. Okay, that's easy enough.
Not easy enough, because remember all the things that changed.
I think Colleen, you ready to make a stab?
Try it.
So, but just before that, so we're clear that there is no 10% rule, right? And I don't think it's really advisable. The 10-second rule is not really advisable anymore either.
It depends on how many kids you have.
There's no 10% rule.
There's no 10% rule in terms of
The
it
wall.
being a
Individual
right.
consideration.
It's a right, yeah, there's more to it than that.
I think that's inherent in the document. I don't think we
We
need to add
appreciate
to
your
that.
beautiful face.
Okay,
All right, Councilwoman Granger.
so move approval of the ordinance granting zone change request of the 1817 to amend the Brio PCD development by amending the design guidelines. The density to remain as it was without movement of that density. Wall clarification that the walls will be built by the builder. The cost will be included in the cost of the facility or home. That those who have previously not had walls will be grandfathered into maintaining their residences the way that they are regarding the walls, that they won't have to pay for them if they didn't have to pay for them when they first came into those homes. I think that's all.
And you want to include the change in your signage, real estate signage?
Yes. Okay, yeah, the signage language that we got tonight that allows residents to put for sale signs in the yards and defines what that has to look like in terms of size and detail. And the signage that does go in the windows for the for lease or rent.
Okay. Anybody want to second that motion?
Second?
I have a
So then
motion.
there's nothing in there on the wall, the retaining walls, the height of the retaining walls. We're leaving that up to the engineer.
Yeah, after, I don't know how we could,
Does it almost seems a shame. The builder wants it.
Well, he will build the split ones because he just told you he sells them better.
for better
But if the geotech comes back right now, the document doesn't allow it, but he's saying, I need to do this right here. It at least gives them that freedom in those odd places. Like this particular one they're talking about is behind the fire station. Most people won't see it, except our firemen.
And unfortunately, we find ourselves in this situation downside of Rio, kind of dependent upon the engineering in some cases. We don't have that expertise.
Does that help kind of clarify that? That's,
Yeah.
They're still going to do both. It just allows them the freedom when the geotech comes back and says, because of these circumstances, I'm not going to put my stamp on it unless I can do this. And that's how we'd want it. It's like they said, they ended up with 4 grids versus 1 at every 5 feet. So it'd only been 1 in those 2 walls in a 10-foot. This one, they're going to end up with twice as many.
Let me clarify also where the language in the document says fences, we're considering that to be also a wall.
I have a motion and a second, correct?
correct.
Correct. We want to vote?
Yeah. Ward, I.
No dog parks, right?
Oh, dear.
Clef eye.
There's some jokes that you haven't given more time with.
That's not funny yet.
Aye.
Granger, aye.
Turret guy.
All right, that's approved. Thanks, you guys. Thank you for your cooperation. Thank you, council. Item C, consideration to approve an ordinance granting a zone change request Z-18-18. A request from R115 residential single family, 15,000 square foot lots to RA1 residential agricultural 1 acre lots with a bonus density program located approximately Royal Drive and Galilee Way.
Thank you, Mayor. This also is the 2-week holdover is completed. Items ready for your action. Just to remind you on this, the Planning Commission held their public hearing and they unanimously recommended approval of Z-18-18 for the change from the R115 to the RA1 with bonus density credits on that. So just to let you know, if this passes tonight, they'll come back and amend their preliminary plat, which then allow them to put in the final plat that they brought to you a couple months ago and had the issues with the smaller lots. So this is just part of that chain of events for this. So, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that the council might have on this zone change.
Mayor, if there's no questions, I'll make a motion that we approve zone change request Z-18-18.
This is my first opportunity in the bonus density. I just feel like I should talk more about it, but I don't.
Well, if you want to talk about it more, I'd recommend at that preliminary plat amendment. We'll explain all that at that time.
Thank you.
So
I have a motion. Did I have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilman Clough.
Ward, aye.
Clough, aye.
Ranger, aye.
Turek, aye.
Thank you. Item 8, surplus vehicles. Consideration to approve the sale of surplus vehicles. Mike Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor. This is actually kind of odd for us, but our second go around is surplus vehicles this year. So we've received new vehicles and got the older vehicles ready to surplus out. You have your list.
Is this where we make money when we do this?
Well, not really.
Okay.
We cut our losses.
Where you lose less.
Yeah, we have 2 trucks that are the 2018 models. Those are the ones that we call our rollout. We drive them or sell them. Our minimum bid price is the price we paid for the vehicles after driving them for a year, and we've done really well recently on those. The last one we just sold a couple of months ago, the 250 diesel actually sold for $5,000 more than we paid for it.
wow.
Right.
We've done well.
But that's been consistent for us, right?
It
I
has.
don't think we've had anything any of them that haven't.
Well,
Done
we
okay.
started
Well, in the
it.
last few years anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we started it. In
Yeah, right, because the project,
04.
you learned a little bit.
We went through
Learning
one,
curve.
some that didn't work. Some.
Yeah, 08, the 08 model year was a bad year for us. But
So far, so
So we know
good.
when to do it and when not to now. We've learned.
and then we held off through the downturn. We
Yeah,
didn't
we
do it, and we
threw it.
started back. And when
Was
did
it?
we start back?
What, 13, 14, maybe 15.
So anyway, we have a lot of the older vehicles in there, and you can see that the pricing that we put on them. When we go in, we look at actually book pricing. We set them low, but it is a sealed bid, so people will come in, they'll bid on them. We put in here, you can see the damage that's on them, issues that we have with them. One of the vehicles several vehicles were on our last that you approved, but we found out one of the police cars has a bad transmission in it, so we lowered the price on it from $1,200 to $600. And the Toyota pickup, we lowered the price on that because it's clutch, tires. But
So once this is approved by us, then you start the bidding, you start the listing process, and then you collect the bids and.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we advertise it. We're required to do a 2-week advertising on it. We advertise it in the local paper that's required. We do a sealed bid. We open those down at my office, publicly open bids. Denise is usually there and publicly open them and sell them off.
Why did those 2 Rangers end up on the list? Was that just compiled originally and then after going through it, we decided?
This was the list of the vehicles that we replaced, and so 2 of
Oh,
those
okay.
Rangers,
So you just went through the
we're going to keep
replaceable,
those in, and those are going to be at the fleet
your
department
loaner
as
fleets.
loaner
Yeah,
vehicles.
I see what
So
you've done.
vehicle comes in.
I just
for
wondered
retail.
why they landed on the list to start with.
Yeah.
All right, understandable. Here's your chance to get a 5.7.
Should be a
liter
no-brainer, council.
Heavy Charger.
Yeah, you know.
Mayor, if there's no more discussion, go ahead.
No, I said I'm gonna entertain a motion.
Oh,
Well, Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the sale of surplus vehicles.
I'm happy to second your motion.
I have a motion and a second.
Turek, aye.
Granger, aye.
Clough, aye.
Ward, aye.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mike. Item 9, annexation, consideration to accept and move forward with an annexation application for the airport South Block annexation located east of the St. George Regional Airport. Applicant Scott Peterson.
Not even here.
Okay. We are here to look at another annexation. So this is like number 5 in the last year. So we are growing, lots of growing pains. This annexation was presented from Scott Peterson, and he is proposing to annex in 36.1 acres. So it will be that blue line that's on the map right there. We will now border St. George City on the west and on the south, and then Washington City. This is within our annexation policy plan that's been adopted by the state and adjusted by the county. Let's see. You can kind of see the airport.
Just off the corner.
But if you'll, if you took that overpass, it goes down and it kind of goes nowhere.
Yeah.
That's part of Peterson, like there's that overpass in that area. They were required.
Yeah, there you go.
That overpass and maintain access.
So we got an overpass out of the extension.
They got an overpass out there. Yes.
Denise, just one question or a thought, and this may fall probably into maybe Roger or Mike's. What is, as I understand, what would be the, with the BLM piece there next to it? What would be the process if we were to push that over to the base of the cliffs? So you've got that little section now that's BLM that's going to stay limbo land. But we're in
Isn't
the
that a
middle
lot
of
of?
annexing it. Why?
It looks
I mean,
like there are cliffs there, Jeff.
well, I could, other than, yeah, you got a piece down here that maybe we are against the cliffs.
Well, this is
Yeah,
a property
that-
line.
Yeah,
This, there isn't one here.
that's what I'm saying, because you're butting up to BLM, but that's what I'm thinking is if you've got BLM,
I
and
don't-
you get the base of those, why wouldn't we?
I don't know if we can split a portion of BLM land that they have not already
Okay,
split
that's what
to
I didn't
annex
know.
only part of it in.
Okay.
I
So
would
that
have
may
to
be a
check on
future
that. Yeah,
concern.
We can check
I was
on
just
that.
wondering
Request
if the
annexation.
process would allow and we could just take that. and we-
Would BLM have to request the annexation?
No, they would,
And we know, there's BLM that's sitting in corporate.
Correct.
and-
You know, that's what
I
I'm
think you're
wondering,
right.
if we went, yeah, to get us over against those cliffs, and that way it's all, it's in, it's done, and we don't have to come back another time, and I think a lot
we'll
of
be
that's
glad to
probably-
check. Pardon me? I think they do, they have to have a,
Well, I thought it was, but I.
yeah, that's why I'm saying, I'm thinking that we may have to follow.
That's one of the issues we ran into with
Like an
Long Island annexation. They would allow them to split the property,
Yeah,
but BLM is not really property.
Well, that's what I was gonna say.
I don't know.
I don't know.
and we can,
And
we can look
I
in
think
it.
that area that's there, that is the wider area, I think that's critical.
That's,
I was gonna say,
yeah, I think if you get over too far,
Yeah, they
Uh-huh,
wouldn't-
the bear
I don't-
pop
they
up.
wouldn't mind us annexing, but it could create an issue for us.
because then all of a sudden it's in our,
mhm, environmental and,
good thought.
Yeah.
Okay, good points.
We also have a
I'm
lot of
just
this,
hoping
they're
that
bringing
someday
in
that fence will
Sitla
start moving Like the
property.
tortoise habitat moved. It's like, hey, we get some good ground out of that down there. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if some of those are a little raw for others.
Let's give it some
Yeah,
paper
dog
cup, throw
parks.
a little lemon juice in it.
All right.
Okay, and then the applicant's requesting that the zoning come in as master plan. So this kind of gives you an idea of what it would be, but that's kind of how they're looking to,
So
that's
if
what
I-
our master plan
if
is
I
right now.
connect that, which you may have already connected, is, when, some manufacturing and some craft views of companies. This is all part of. Yeah, just connecting those discussions. This is the area.
But tonight, we're just annexing.
We're
not
just,
approving.
tonight, we're just looking for a recommendation to move forward,
But
to
if
go
it's
through
saying
the
if it comes in,
process.
Councilwoman, if it comes in, the proposal is it comes in already zoned.
But that's not this process.
No, not tonight.
That's another step.
Yeah, that's in probably a month or more.
Well, that's when you accept
From
what
now.
you started tonight.
Tonight, we just
So
accept the
this
petition
basically
and
starts
just
the
move forward.
process of saying, well, now we're going to go out and advertise the annexation, da, da. But ultimately, it's going to come back with that same proposal saying, okay, you start the process. Now you're done with it.
Yeah, we'll come back with the public hearing. Yeah, it just starts our shot clock.
And only the labeled sections in here and the zoning are the ones that are changing, correct? The others, I'm presuming you've taken off of a map that's.
That
Where
is
it's-
all the,
like it-
that is.
So
all
the orange and the green and the yellow up top?
That's already in our city.
Yes, right.
That's already done.
Plan designation, by the way, as well. The
Yeah.
zoning won't be these colors. We'll give them specific I-1, I-2, C2, C3, whatever you decide to do.
This is just written out in words. We see what.
Yeah, this is what the general plan says, that the zoning should be on these.
Oh, was that, okay, yes.
Yeah, so they're wanting to mirror the general plan, so this is,
At this point.
And they're not
At
asking
this-
for any changes beyond what the general plan already calls for? I mean,
Not right
eventually they'll
now.
ask for specific zoning, but
just
If they do,
those.
They need to be here that night and let you know that. And see if you want to accept that or not.
Yeah, right now, this is how it is, and from my understanding, they would come back with a zone change if they want to develop it any other way.
so then the next part of the process would be you would send out, have you already sent notices out?
No, we
This is
haven't got
just
to
the
that
very
point. This
beginning
is
of
just for
everything.
us to know if you guys are even interested in entertaining this. And if so, then we start our certification, our noticing, checking the percentage of properties and
So if
signatures
they
and
changed
everything.
it, they'd start at the general plan change level and then move into,
If they want something.
if they wanted anything different, yeah, okay. So we're not approving this because we already have this. We're just approving moving forward on the annexation.
Correct.
Okay.
Are we ready for a motion?
Mayor, if there's no further discussion, I would move that we move forward with the annexation application for Airport South Block, annexation located east of the St. George Regional Airport.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Thanks.
Atta girl.
We have a motion and a second.
Ward, I.
Clough eye.
Granger, aye.
Turek, aye.
Thank you. Item 10, the report. Anything to report from the assigned committees?
Oh, man. We have to
Just
say,
as a part of our ongoing RAP discussion, I know that Active Transportation Committee was looking for a couple of thousand to match what they're hoping to get is some matching funds. I hope we'll take that into consideration from the rec department.
So, yeah, let me follow up on that. What we've asked is that so we brought it to the department head's attention. So Brian Brown brought it to me, and of course, there is a couple $1,000 match from the city, plus some projects. And so we brought it to staff meetings so that we could talk about what kind of projects there might be. We have things like the bike rodeo that the police puts on for the little kids, and you can get some helmets and things like that. And we're still also coming up with projects. We kind of pushed it back a little bit back to the active transportation, said, you help us generate some projects as the active transportation. And then when those projects are kind of noted, we'll probably, we can see where we can find the funds. We don't like to be moved by the fact that just because there are funds there, we take it unless we have a real valid projects. And that was, the department heads didn't really kind of come up with a lot, but if active transportation can identify, what do we need, 3 or 4, something like that as part of the grant?
You know, my response wasn't they needed to get more specific and then run it
Yeah,
through.
and that's what we need. But I think we're open to that.
Thank you. Anybody else? We'll move on to city manager report.
Well, I was just going to say there,
Oh, wait, go ahead.
Planning Commission is working through some zone changes, or not zone changes, some changes to the ordinances within the city there. It's kind of a neat process. I guess I was going to point to Drew and ask him when that, when does the Planning Commission make their next move on the proposed changes that they have before them on the ordinances?
What ordinances specifically are we?
Planning Commission, I was just making an announcement, just letting folks know that the Planning Commission is looking at some changes, cleaning up of ordinances.
Ouch.
What, I was just asking what the next step is that for the Planning Commission on those.
Well, what we'll have to do is run an ad in the paper
Yeah.
for X amount of time and bring those forward just in that process so that they'll have their public hearing, then you'll have the public hearing and decide on those. So,
Fascinating reading.
Are,
oh yeah.
it's been a while since we met with the planning commission. Are we due for one of those meetings?
I hate to even tell you, but next Wednesday is the 5th Wednesday, but I don't know if anybody's ready to do a meeting then. That's when we've generally met. We don't have to be on a 5th Wednesday, but that's worked before. But that would be the next 5th Wednesday would be next Wednesday.
I just have noted that
Or we
haven't
can look,
had one for a while.
if you're fine, we can look ahead and plan whatever the next one is beyond this. I think it's kind of short notice for them and for yourselves. We could look for the next 5th and get together and at least have any other discussion of, because it has been I think
Just a little while.
we've kind of lapsed on the last 3 or just not had things to discuss. So if that's the council's feeling, we could do that. May? That's a great month.
Yeah.
Should we consider bringing them in as a part of?
It's
a
probably
workshop?
graduation night and everything though, isn't it, Mayor? I mean, no, that's not.
No, it's May 29th, Wednesday, right? May 29th.
Yeah, school will be done by then. I
Yes,
think
it will.
graduations is the week before that, so.
2 weeks, almost.
Then we have one in July. May and July.
For the one in July, is that going to be close to Pine? It's not Pioneer Day. Gotta be fast.
Mayor, if there's, I was going to pick Councilman Ward's. We met as an MP11 committee. And when is the Transportation Expo? I can't,
Going with
It's,
February.
Coming up.
Yeah, it's Brooklyn. It's like next week. Isn't it?
I know it's,
February, not February. I'm sorry, not next week.
Pretty close.
anyway, we wanted to put the word out to our public and whatnot of the Transportation Expo that is coming up. It'll be down at the Dixie Center again. And projects across the county will be there and be presented, and each city's there to talk and discuss. And also our documents getting close to finalization. I think they said March 22nd was anticipated release of the environmental decision there. So should be learning something coming down the road very quickly.
Mr. Shaw, you know when the Transportation Expo is? 12th?
February 12th?
Yeah, and then their public hearing after that, they had on March 14th, but they were kind of going to move that around.
Correct. Yeah, there is another public
They-
hearing
They
coming.
were technically not going to release their information at the Transportation
No,
Expo.
correct.
The decision.
Yes. That's coming out, I think
They
it's
were going
March
to wait,
20th.
they were going to
yeah.
wait for that to
that March date, 22nd or something was anticipated of when that would be ready.
The open house is on the 22nd.
There was some discussion of moving that around. Have spring break, there was a spring break week originally proposed, and yeah, so anyway, that committee has met again, and anyway.
And then speaking of public hearings and open houses, then we have an open house here. The 30, is it the 31st? I was thinking it was the 30th. How come it, so now it's not on my calendar, but yeah. But that's, yes, January 31st, and that is for the, not MP11, but MP13. Parkway. So between 13 and the top of Green Springs. And is that their announcement of their conclusion of that study?
Probably the early process. Remember, we've started
Yeah. So this is
18
just
months ago on this one.
Because they're still anticipating at the moment
January
a Cat X on that, right?
31st.
Thursday.
So-
What is a Cat X?
A category exemption, an exemption from an environmental impact assessment or an environmental assessment. So, which is always what we anticipated there. And then there was just a little hiccup, but I was glad to hear that, matter of fact, we're back to that level because that's just a lot of time and a lot of money.
All right, anything else? Then we'll move to city manager report.
It's got a couple of updates, Mayor. Mike, do you have an anticipated, I was going to ask Mike this, do you have an anticipated time possibly when the council can have a review of the irrigation secondary water master plan? We talked about that and I just.
I'm a little bit too passionate about that.
Okay. And then also at that same time, Mike and I met with Rick Hafen, who's been on the city's water attorney for years and years and knows what's going on. We're going to have Rick also, we're going to schedule some time for Rick to be here with the council and spend some time talking about the ditches and the rights and all of those things. And I think that, again, this goes to my objective is we will have the smartest council in the county on water issues. And so we're planning on doing that. We've met with them. Great resource for us.
Scary priority.
I think I mentioned to you, we're looking at Merrill bidding in March, Merrill Road. So I know I've talked a little bit about the fiber work we've been doing with TDS and underground. And I just wanted to mention that, we're kind of seeing the conclusion of some of that. The generation plant and the fire station was just recently transferred over to our dedicated fiber, and the rest of the substation should be transferred over here in the next little while. So that's been a great project for us. Once getting those over to our own dedicated fiber, of course, we're not subject to price issues. We have greater control, and so this has actually been a project that we've been working on for a couple of decades almost, is trying to get fiber. Not all of our buildings still have it. We do have, I think I may have mentioned that we're looking at doing maybe I didn't. We're looking at doing a rebuild, a power rebuild along the west side of the Turner Turf Farm. There's some improvements, some upgrades there. If you look down that line when you drive past Telegraph, now that I'm telling you this, you will do it. When you look down that line, you'll see that the poles are kind of dotted like this all the way down. So of course we need to straighten those up, and as part of the straightening up of those poles, we're needing some easement stuff from the Turners. And so Mike and Rick met with Kendall, I believe. This is last week to talk about, because of course they've had some also concerns with stormwater. And so I think we're working out that arrangements where all parties will be kind of be able to get that worked out. And so we're developing an MOU on that right now, but I thought I'd update you on that. And then I was going to mention this last night and I failed to do so, but so on the retreat, on Friday, just if you want to meet at the city here at 9, we're meeting at the homestead and we'll have lunch up there. The staff will join us for the first part of we should be done by 2. So before lunch, we'll have staff involved with you as council. I'll get you agenda. It was meant to go out today. You'll have it first thing in the morning because there are some things. Primarily, we're looking at not only items that the council's requested, we will talk in the afternoon about RAP tax and some of those things that I don't think all the staff need to be involved in. First part of the day, we'll talk, of course, we try to focus on some strategic plan issues. I'll attach the link to my email of the strategic plan just so you can, it's a quick read. So just to refresh your memories on what some of the points are in the strategic plan. Again, we may not get all of the topics, so it'll be under the direction of the mayor, but the mayor can work with you as we get up there and you can decide what topics you want to cover on the strategic plan. Because again, what that does then for us is it gives us some direction as we then move right into the budget period. If there's some initiatives of accomplishing the strategic plan that the council wants to see in this upcoming year, then we can start incorporating those into budget discussions as well. So 9 o'clock here, be from about 10 to 2 on Friday. I think that's it. I think so. Thank you.
All right, we do have a need to go to a closed session to discuss the professional competence of an individual. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this portion of it.
You need to vote on going to that.
Yeah, somebody needs to vote on going into the closed session.
I'll make a motion that we leave our city council meeting and move to a closed session.
Second.
Thank you.
Frick, aye.
Clough eye.
Ward, aye.
Take a 5-minute break.
Some